The story of Marcus, the introverted accountant who quietly bought 4 rental properties on a $65,000 salary, no loans from family. Nobody at Marcus's office knew. Not his manager, not the colleague he'd eaten lunch with for 6 years, not the woman in HR who processed his paychecks every 2 weeks. They saw what he wanted them to see, a quiet, reliable accountant who drove a used Honda Civic, packed his own lunch, and left right at 5. What they didn't see was this. By the time Marcus turned 38, he owned 4 rental properties. He collected over $4,800 a month in rental income, and his net worth had quietly crossed $600,000 on a $65,000 salary. No inheritance, no wealthy relatives, no loans from family, no side hustle, no viral moment. Just a plan, a system, and 9 years of doing something most people aren't willing to do. Nothing flashy. This is Marcus's story. H.O. is Marcus. Marcus grew up in Dayton, Ohio, middle of the country, middle of the economic spectrum. His parents rented their whole lives. Money was something that came in, went out, and was rarely discussed. There was never a formal lesson about investing, equity, or wealth. Just the unspoken understanding that you worked hard, paid your bills, and hoped things stayed stable. He graduated with an accounting degree in 2008, the worst possible year to enter the job market. He spent 2 years doing contract bookkeeping for small businesses before landing a full-time role at a mid-sized manufacturing firm. His starting salary, $44,000. By his late 20s, Marcus was earning $58,000 and living in a 1-bedroom apartment that cost him $825 a month. He wasn't struggling, but he also wasn't building anything. Money came in, bills went out, a small 401k contribution, a little savings, and a quiet nagging feeling that there had to be a smarter way. He was introverted by nature. He didn't go to networking events. He didn't have a mentor who handed him the playbook. What he did have was time and a habit of reading. One book changed everything. The Turning Point. At 29, Marcus came across a copy of The Millionaire Real Estate Investor at a used bookstore. He almost didn't buy it. It was $3.50, and he thought it would be full of get-rich-quick nonsense. He bought it anyway. He read it in 4 days. The concept that stuck with him wasn't complicated. Real estate, done patiently, could generate income that paid you while you slept. Unlike a salary, rental income didn't require you to show up. Unlike stocks, you could use modest amounts of borrowed money to control an asset worth much more. And unlike most investments, tenants effectively paid off the loan for you over time. Marcus wasn't impulsive. He spent the next 8 months just learning the estate market. He drove neighborhoods on weekends, noting which streets had stable tenants, which had high vacancy signs, which were quietly improving. He made a decision. He would buy his first property by age 31. To do that, he needed a down payment, and that meant saving. The strategy. Step 1. The savings machine. Marcus set a target of saving 30% of his take-home pay every month. On his salary after tax, that meant setting aside roughly $1,200 to $1,400 each month without fail. He didn't do this by living miserably. He did it by making a handful of deliberate choices and sticking to them. He kept his apartment. He drove his 2009 Civic until the odometer hit 190,000 miles. He cooked most of his meals. He canceled subscriptions he'd forgotten he had. He didn't buy a new phone for 4 years. He wasn't dramatic about it. He didn't post about it. He just did it. In 22 months, he had saved $28,000. Step 2. House hacking. Marcus's first purchase was a duplex, a 2-unit property in a working-class neighborhood in Dayton, priced at $112,000. He put down $22,400, 20%, and kept the remaining $5,600 as his emergency reserve. Here was the move that changed everything. He moved into one unit and rented out the other. His mortgage, taxes, and insurance on the duplex came to $720 a month. His tenant paid $650. Marcus's out-of-pocket housing costs dropped to $70 a month. Before, he was paying $825 a month in rent, money that built nothing. Now he was paying $70 a month and building equity in an asset. That freed up an additional $755 per month in cash flow. Added to his existing savings habit, he was now putting away over $2,100 a month. He called it the foundation. Everything that came after was built on it. Step 3. The BRRRR method. 2 years later, Marcus discovered the BRRRR strategy: buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. The idea: buy a distressed property below market value, renovate it to increase its appraised worth, rent it out, then refinance based on the new higher value, pulling out most of your original investment to use on the next. Marcus found a 3-bedroom, single-family home listed at $67,000. It needed a new roof, updated flooring, and a bathroom renovation. He estimated the after-repair value at $105,000. He used $18,000 of his savings for the down payment and another $14,000 for renovations, $32,000 total out of pocket. After repairs, the home appraised at $108,000. He refinanced at 75% loan-to-value, pulling out $81,000. After paying off the original purchase loan and renovation costs, he netted back $27,000. He had spent $32,000 and gotten $27,000 back. Effective cost of ownership, $5,000. Monthly rent, $975. Marcus stared at his spreadsheet for a long time that evening. Then he started looking for the next one. The sacrifices and setbacks. Let's be honest about something, because most stories like this skip the hard parts. Marcus's path was not a straight line. In year 3, his first tenant stopped paying rent. A family emergency, job loss, real circumstances, not malice. But the outcome was still 2 months of lost income and a painful eviction process that cost him $1,800 in legal fees and set him back 4 months on his savings timeline. He also made a buying mistake. His third property, a single-family home in a neighborhood he hadn't researched carefully enough. Vacancy ran high. The caliber of applicants was inconsistent. For 14 months, that property was more of a headache than income. He didn't sell it. He learned from it. He tightened his tenant screening process, hired a property manager for that unit, and it stabilized. There were also the social costs, quieter ones, harder to measure. Friends bought new cars and took vacations and upgraded apartments in their 30s. Marcus watched and stayed the course. There were moments of doubt, moments where the gap between what he was doing and what felt normal felt very wide. He kept a journal during those years. One entry from when he was 34 read simply, "Still on track. Trust the math." The outcome: by 38, Marcus owned 4 properties. Property 1, the original duplex. Current value, approximately $158,000. He still lives in 1 unit. Monthly rent collected, $850. Property 2, the BRRRR renovation. Current value, $122,000. Monthly rent, $1,050. Property 3, the difficult one. Stabilized. Current value, $98,000. Monthly rent, $925. Property 4, a small 2-bedroom he purchased at 36, fully rented from day 1. Current value, $130,000. Monthly rent, $995. Total monthly rental income, $3,820. After mortgage payments, insurance, taxes, and property management fees, net monthly cash flow of approximately $640. Combined equity across all 4 properties, roughly $290,000. His 401k built steadily over 14 years, 218,000. Emergency fund and liquid savings, $41,000. Total net worth, approximately $549,000, with a trajectory that puts him at financial independence before 45. He still works, he likes his job, but for the first time in his life, the job is a choice, not a requirement. He still drives a Honda, he still packs his lunch, and nobody at the office still has any idea. The lesson. Here is what Marcus's story is actually about. It is not about real estate specifically. It's not about the BRRRR method or duplexes or Ohio property prices. It's about the gap between what is visible and what is being built. Most wealth, real, lasting, quiet wealth, is invisible from the outside. It doesn't look like success. It doesn't post on social media. It doesn't wear the clothes or drive the car that signals arrival. It looks like a used Honda in the parking lot, like a packed lunch, like someone who leaves at 5 and goes home to check on a rental property. Marcus didn't have a secret. He didn't have an advantage. He had one thing most people talk about, but few people actually use: a long-time horizon and the patience to not interrupt the process. He started with $28,000 and 9 years of consistent choices. That's it. The question isn't whether you could do what Marcus did. The question is whether you're willing to be invisible for a few years while you build something real. If Marcus's story resonated with you, there's one thing I want you to do right now. Not buy a property, not open a spreadsheet. Just ask yourself, what is the one financial decision I've been putting off that I already know I should make? Write it in the comments below. You don't have to share it publicly, but writing it down makes it real. And if you want more stories like Marcus's, ordinary people, real numbers, no hype, subscribe to Unnoticed Wealth. Every video is another blueprint. Wealth isn't loud, it rarely is.